This is Texas, and we do things bigger here.
Texas is known for its big moments in history, and even the smaller things here have a big meaning. Today, we'll tell you about one such example, WRR, a classical music station based in Dallas that has a bigger part in the world of history than it is often given credit for. WRR is a radio station that is based out of Dallas, Texas, and is the first licensed radio station in Texas and one of the first 5 licensed in the entire country. They currently play classical music 24/7, but they began very differently. WRR was the brainchild of inventor Henry Garrett, a police and fire signal superintendent for the city of Dallas, who tinkered with radio in his off-duty hours. Garrett envisioned radio as the modern way for firefighters in the field to communicate. This had been successful in other cities, and so he sold city officials on the efficiency and safety value his concept could offer.
We also aired the very first commercials. In the late 1920s, the fire department needed a bunch of new equipment. The city wouldn't pay for it, so some local businessmen got together and bought a new fire truck and whatever it was they needed. And the fire department ran 60-second thank you messages and told people to go to these businesses and to buy whatever it was they needed. And it was so successful that these guys started paying the city for them to put these thank you messages on.
Thus, WRR was born, a communication station for the city's firefighters. Thankfully, there weren't always fires to put out and kittens to rescue from trees, so there was plenty of dead air. To fill the time, operators played music and told jokes, and people ended up enjoying listening in. As time went on and newer methods of dispatch were invented, WRR transitioned to a typical radio station with full-time content. They have broadcasted in various formats and currently broadcast as a classical music station. WRR is a city-owned station operated as its own enterprise. They generate their revenue from airtime sold to companies and do not use public funds to operate. Their broadcasting studio and original antenna tower is currently inside Fair Park in Dallas, where they have been based since 1936, and their signal is transmitted from a tower in nearby Cedar Hill.
I think if you do the math on that, you probably couldn't play that many pieces of music in a year. There's probably about 10,000 that get normal airplay, and then there's certain specialty things that might be a once a year kind of thing on a special day.
Texas has had its share of leaders in history, and WRR can be considered one of those by being the first to try new ways of broadcasting in the Dallas area. Besides being the first radio station in Texas, WRR was also one of the first to stream over the internet thanks to the ingenuity of Mark Cuban. At that time, he was fascinated with the idea of using the internet to help stations reach a wider audience, so he approached WRR with the idea of placing them on the internet. His plan was to hook multiple car radios to computers in order to extract the audio from many local channels and then stream them on the internet, allowing anyone with a connection to listen.
We were the very first station in the country to broadcast over the internet. Mark Cuban came to us when he was trying to figure out how to do video and audio on the net and said, "Hey guys, would you like for me to put you on the World Wide Web?" which is what it's called. And we went, "Sure, why not?" So I think he went out and bought a bunch of car radios and put them in a rack, and each car radio sent a signal. One was tuned to our station, and it sent a signal out to the internet.
Thanks to WRR's embracing of this idea, now every major radio station in big markets have an internet stream, and listeners expect the ability to hear favorite radio station over the internet as well as over the receiver. This definitely helped build the popularity of such services as iHeartRadio, which has more than 1,500 live radio stations and reaches 97 million listeners as of May 2014, with over 50 million subscribers. Without WRR taking the lead, we would not be able to enjoy something we now view as commonplace like Pandora or Spotify. Following that, in 2006, they began broadcasting in HD radio, despite its apparent lack of popularity in the Americas at the time. In essence, HD radio is much like what HD television is, but with a focus on the audio rather than the video. By accepting this technology, their station was able to play broadcasts in a much clearer quality, allowing the music to be better enjoyed by a sensitive ear, something that's very important in classical music. Through the accomplishing of these feats, as well as many others, WRR is considered by many to be a leader in all forms of radio.
An art form that's generating tons and tons and tons of music, and we won't know for quite a few years what of it will survive and what of it will, that your great-great-grandchildren will look back and say, man, that opera about Mount Everest was fantastic, and it may still be performed 100 years from now. We don't know. When Mozart wrote what he wrote, he and Isaac Newton and all these guys he's considered one of the great geniuses of human history. He was just a guy trying to make a living, churning out music. He didn't know that almost 300 years later, his music would be considered some of the most beautiful things ever created.
WRR has shown itself to be a leader in broadcasting in Texas and leaves a legacy to be respected by preserving musical history, classical music to be exact. Most classical music pieces were influenced by what was happening at the time, and if you listen, you can often hear the stories and the melodies used and what they express. For example, the period of Romanticism was inspired by the Industrial Revolution, the aristocratic norms of the Enlightenment period, and the beginnings of a scientific understanding of nature. Listen to Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture, and you listen to the story of the attempted French invasion of Russia. You can hear the strains of La Marseillaise representing Napoleon's advancing troops, Russian anthems and church bells representing the successful Russian defense, and actual artillery fire to put you right in the setting. That's why it goes so well with 4th of July fireworks. Boom. Dance Macabre by Saint Saul results in a musical image of the meaning of Halloween to Europeans in the 16th and 17th centuries. The violin represents death calling the dead back for one night on earth. The different groups of instruments call to mind the spirits waltzing about, and you can even hear the rooster crowing at daybreak. They can paint a picture in your mind, different instruments representing different characters or emotions, and tell a story to the listener in ways that modern music no longer do. In essence, classical music is another way of describing history itself. WRR keeps this available to us all.
The Dallas Opera this week is premiering a brand new opera that is based on something that happened in 1996 on Mount Everest. And I haven't heard it, so I don't know how good, bad, or indifferent it'll be. They're all real excited about it.
Also, a lot of current-day popular music is inspired by classical music. From the Beach Boys' Lady Linda, which is taken from Johann Sebastian Bach's composition Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring, to Billy Joel's This Night, which uses the second movement of Ludwig van Beethoven's Pathetic Sonata. There are references to classical music everywhere. Pachelbel's canon and D chord progression has been used in a lot of music, like Green Day's Basket Case or even Let It Be by the Beatles. So, without someone there to spread the beauty of this music, even what is being produced now would be significantly different, since the fount of their creative minds would then be gone.
Versus the 1800s, and there are actually distinct musical styles and eras. Classical music doesn't sound all the same as you might guess. The composers of the day were influenced by the events of the day, just like composers today that compose music for top 40 or rock.
Keeping that in mind, we can easily see that WRR's influence in the field of broadcasting is critical, not only as a leader for broadcasting, but also as a steward of a musical genre. Texas definitely has a treasure of history in WRR. WRR has definitely made its mark in the world of radio broadcasting by being willing to innovate and by protecting what is probably one of our most crucial links to the past. They decided to do these things before they were cool to do, and so really, WRR were hipsters before hipsters were even a thing.